Hey everyone, Sycra here, and today I'm joined with Flavia,
Hello.
Bob Meatbag,
Hey.
and Amira.
Hi.
So, um, for those of you who are wondering why I am streaming today instead of at the end of the month, it's because I reached a milestone in Patreon, and so this year we've moved it to once a week streams, and you can thank these 128 patrons for that, who are making all this happen. And on the Patreon, if you want to be a supporter, if you don't, it's okay. But you get stuff like process stuff and point teachings episodes, and we're on episode 23. So yeah, I'm going to be drawing. Flavia is going to be mostly taking your questions, and Bob and Amira are going to be answering stuff, I
Lurking.
guess.
Lurking.
Lurking.
Yes.
So, do we have any questions?
I don't know. They're still saying hi.
Oh, okay.
So hi.
All right.
Let us wait for them to trickle in.
All right. So, I don't know what I'm going to draw. Probably a face or something. Just figure it out as I go. As you know, I'm not very good at talking and drawing, so I'll do my best. I created a sad face already. It's not very celebratory.
Sad faces are the best way to celebrate.
Question: how is Bob's hand doing?
How's your hand?
It's doing better. I can draw a lot more often on my sketchbook, not so much on the tablet. That's gonna have to be a while.
You're preserving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Did you stop gaming?
Huh?
Did you stop gaming?
I learned that lesson a little while ago, so no gaming for the right hand of Bob.
No,
Questions. Pizza.
it's not a question.
It's got a question mark after it.
And then yes.
Yes.
The answer is yes.
Have you ever lost desire to draw, and how did you regain it?
Oh, let's see. I've sort of lost the desire to draw just because I had to not draw for a few months. So getting back onto the horse or the wagon was pretty difficult because it's like my bad habits are a lot more powerful than my good habits, and the good habits are really difficult to form. And it's very easy to get rid of the good habits. And so, for the past few months, basically been trying to rest my arms and hands, so I haven't been doing much. But I suppose one of the ways to just to start working again or to get back into the process of drawing is to just keep doing it, even when you don't want to. Just because having a schedule with these kinds of things is good, just because it forces you to do things, and then and even if you don't like it, even when everything you do really sucks, just the fact that it's like, oh, I still did it, regardless of my feelings or my intentions, sort of gives you, at least for me anyways, it gives me a sense of strength to know that it's like no matter what, I can persevere through this. And then just by the virtue of doing things, just by the virtue of drawing, even though you don't want to, you will eventually find ways to enjoy it again, whether it be through finding different subjects to do, or just accidentally drawing something that's like, oh, hey, I never drew this before. This is interesting. Maybe I can create new dynamics with this on the page. That kind of stuff.
So you're just making new challenges for yourself.
Yeah, I think
that's interested again.
Yeah. Making new challenges, finding new things to draw, that kind of stuff. And it's probably not going to be the very first try you do something new. You're not going to get it. But eventually you will. You just have to keep going, and then you'll find something with it.
Oh, here's a good question. How do you deal with annoying people?
I deal with it by being a hermit and just staying inside my room.
How do you
So I
deal with
don't.
annoying people, Mira?
What?
How do you deal with annoying people?
She joins their streams.
I be as annoying back. That's what I do.
Oh, fight fire with fire.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you have any examples?
I don't know. I think for the most part, I'm the most annoying person in the group, so can't
Oh,
really
Is that
help
true?
you there.
you're not annoying, Amira.
You probably don't know me well enough.
Oh.
I don't know. Usually you can just ignore them, I guess.
Oh, okay.
That's like the best way, right? If you don't like something, you just ignore it.
Oh, you mean just
Do
like
your own
pretend it
stuff.
doesn't exist?
Something like that. Like I guess
No.
it depends on what you mean by annoying, because I mean annoying online or annoying in real life. It's different.
Okay.
I suppose maybe online would be better if they really want a recipe for success.
I know a lot of people who get annoyed by reality, so they just pretend it doesn't exist.
How many hours a day does a serious artist draw? Oh boy.
I think it depends on the artist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some artists have.
Usually it's a lot.
I'm sure the ones that are like in high demand probably do a lot of drawing, just by either doing work or by practice.
Hmm.
Yeah, it varies depending on the artist. It also depends on the stamina. Like some artists have a lot of stamina, so that they can just draw all the time. Others not so much, and they have to use what energy they have. That kind of stuff.
I wonder where this sort of question comes from, though. Like, okay, so a serious artist, like, are you aiming to be a serious artist? And there's a status of a serious artist being taken seriously, having made it, instead of maybe focusing on draw as much as you feel like. If you really feel like drawing a lot, you will have a lot of hours to put into it. You will have a lot of stamina to keep drawing, and you will get somewhere. But if you're sort of looking up and, oh, how much should I aim for? It's like, why aren't you aiming for your highest and then looking up from there?
I think it's probably insecurity. It's just it's insecurity and perhaps also laziness. It's usually that or a combination of those. When I first started out, I just didn't know what was sort of like, what is the standard. So there were a lot of like those dumb questions going through my head, and I noticed that like I think maybe just for beginners as well, they might be doing that as well, because they will always ask things like, oh, what equipment do you use? How many hours do you do, or what should I start with, or what drawing should I do, and that kind of stuff. And it's sort of a very insecure type of question, because you just go like, well, I don't know anything, or I'm too lazy. I just want to know what the standard is instead of figuring it out myself, which is more difficult, but ultimately more rewarding, and probably the best way to start going about things, because you just figure it out on your own.
Yeah, I suppose so.
You don't agree?
Oh, what's your opinion, Fabia?
I don't know. I'm having a brain fart right now.
Oh, that's fine.
The questions are scrolling in very quickly, and I'm trying to catch them.
I like your
Someone
image,
said,
Sycra.
what the hell am I drawing? I am drawing a person who is happy. See, this is what happiness looks like.
I like it. This is what's with.
You want to adopt an anonymous shit poster who's asking for it? You feel like adopting someone? Takes that as a no.
Wait, what?
There was a question for Bob. Bob, will you adopt me? Signed, anonymous shitposter. So.
Sure, I can adopt you. No, no telling what I'll do to you, but okay, that's your choice.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. How do you deal with people complimenting your art, especially when you realize it's pretty bad and kind of unsociable and not good at communicating?
Throw water in your face.
I'm in high school. I live with my parents. I'm trying to learn how to draw. The distractions at home are getting in the way of learning. What do I do?
Headphones.
Yeah. Headphones, turn off your internet. I don't know. You're answering your own question, and your distractions are getting in the way, so cut out the distractions. I suppose it would be hard, like it's not easy to do so, just cut it out, but you're saying you're trying to learn how to draw. Try to, I don't know, take yourself more seriously. Try to take your goal more seriously instead of like, oh yeah, let me just watch TV or let me do this or that. It's pretty straightforward, but it's not easy. How do you break having an unnatural look to an illustration once you incorporate your subject into it?
An unnatural look into illustration?
Once you incorporate a person or a creature into it.
What do they mean by unnatural? Because that's very broad.
I don't know. I imagine they do the composition first, and then they try to put in the focal character, and then it looks pasted on. I imagine that would be.
Oh, well, let's say if that is the circumstance, like from what they're saying, like then they've already done the environment first. Now they're trying to fit the character into it. I don't know, it could just be a drawing issue. Maybe you just need to do like thumbnails just to get iterations of it. It says, okay, what pose is going to be this person or creature is going to be in, what position, what are they doing in the environment, that kind of stuff. It could be, I don't know, maybe it just could be that they're not used to drawing characters. Yeah. And they just need more practice.
Yeah. Do you think drawing with thick brush or thick tools is preferred for inexperienced artists?
It has its uses. I mean, when I was doing things early on, I was using a lot of thick brushes because it's when I was doing life drawing, if I bent the pencil that I was using sideways and then I was doing strokes, it looked better. And the advantage of that is that it can make you feel a bit more confident, so you could draw more. The disadvantage is that thick brushes are very rough, and they can easily create detail that you didn't intend to. And it's good for just the looks, sure, but it also means that you're not necessarily in control. The thicker the brush, the more you get away with. So I suppose if you're just starting out, you can use it, but eventually it might be a good idea to just sort of use thinner brushes. Just because you can get away with less, and it forces you to create more details on your own. You know, you use less of it as a crutch that way.
Yeah, I suppose it might be nice as a gimmick to start yourself, to sort of jumpstart yourself and get yourself more into it, but
yeah.
You have to break away from it.
Yeah. It is a good idea to do that eventually. I mean, it's a good thing to establish a good relationship with art right off from the beginning, because that can keep you going. But you know, there are bumps in it, and you have to confront those eventually.
Yeah. Here's a serious question. Why do you draw? What motivates you?
I guess for me it was just natural. I've been drawing ever since I was a toddler, maybe even younger. So I've always drawn. But when I took it seriously, it was when I realized that it's just like, oh, well, this is sort of the thing I'm good at. Might as well dedicate myself to it.
Yeah. Oh.
Why do you draw, Flavia?
Oh, I've got a lot of stuff in my head that I need to see gone from my head and onto the page or onto the canvas. It's sort of I need to look it in the eye.
All those cauliflowers.
Yeah, all those cauliflowers, an entire salad of them. Yeah, it's really it's more of coping with trauma. Just outsource it.
Yeah.
Put it somewhere where you can deal with it and it doesn't really plague you from the inside, and it feels kind of cathartic just to do it, even if I'm failing at it. Like while I'm learning, of course, I have a lot of failed drawings, but it still feels good to see it.
And you, Mer?
Why do I draw?
Yeah.
Because because it's something I know I could never master, so it's a hobby I can have forever.
That's fine.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Kozlik asks, how do I tell my parents I draw hentai stuff?
Do you
don't
need
have
to?
to tell
I
them.
think you just show them.
Yeah.
I think you just sit them down in their living room and just play a slideshow of your hentai.
Mom, Dad, this is what I do for a living.
Yeah, this is what I do. Or even if not for a living, just like, this is what I love in life.
That's funny.
Yeah. Is being able to make clean line art really a beneficial or necessary skill? A lot of people seem to think it is.
I'm not sure if I'm the best person to answer that question because a lot of my stuff is pretty rough, but I have seen that having clean work helps with just the making it look professional with presentation. Yeah, people really like presentation, so I guess it could be a benefit. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Really like presentation.
What about presentation?
I don't know, just people like it
Yeah.
a lot more than I do.
There you go,
It's like
everybody.
the idea.
Yeah.
Well, it creates an object for them to acquire. It's more
Yeah.
for them, for your audience, than for yourself, or they're
I
getting
shouldn't say
insight into
people,
your thing.
because I mean, there's lots of different types of. Some people like sketchy stuff, and some people like more finished stuff. But a lot of people like finished stuff.
Yeah, and I suppose a lot of well that depends. I guess if you're an illustrator, then like let's say things for work would probably be more beneficial if it was looking more finished.
Yeah, but there's also a big difference between presentable and like polished, like super polished. It doesn't have to be super polished. It just has to be presentable.
Yeah, that is true. There are a lot of techniques out there that with like you don't have to put in a lot of effort, but it just looks like it's already kind of finished.
Yeah. Like color dodge.
There you go, everybody. Color dodge.
Yeah.
Make note of that.
I can't visualize at all, and it troubles me since I can't really translate my dreams into my drawings. Have you guys experienced any of this, or do you know anyone who did? What do you think, Sycra?
Oh, sounds familiar.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm like that. But you can eventually strengthen your brain so you can see things better. Maybe not perfectly, but better.
Yeah. Like if you just practice enough, then eventually you will be able to see things more. I know that like I've been able to see more of the things in my mind than I was, let's say, I don't know, when I was 15 or something. just takes practice.
Did Bob get any other calls from the Indian guy?
Oh.
Go for it.
Yeah, I have gotten a few calls. Lately, I haven't been answering them just because I needed my throat to recover from a strep throat infection. But there was one maybe a month or so back where they called, and then I forgot his name, but then he was saying stuff like, "Oh, we are here. I'm from the technical support. We need to see if there's something wrong with your computer." And then he said his name, and because I don't remember, let's just call him Paul. But Paul said, he did the usual shtick, and I'm like, "Oh, Paul. Oh, yes, I've been meaning to call you. Listen, we've been getting ready for your operation, and we'll be having it tomorrow. You'll be able to make it in tomorrow, right?" Paul says, yes. I'm sorry, what operation? And it's like, Paul, you're having the operation to remove. We'll be removing your penis. We'll be removing your testicle. We'll be removing your prostate. Because of the severity of the condition that you have. So we'll be moving. We'll be getting everything ready. Everything's accounted for. You have your credit card number, right? And he says, yes. And it's like, okay, good. So basically, like I said, we'll be removing everything. Of course, you'll be numb during this time. You will be awake, so you'll know everything that we'll be doing to you. That kind of stuff. I kept on going with this sort of thing, and then I mentioned something about credit cards, and then he got really curious. Then it's like, how will this procedure be paid for? And I said, Paul, we've already been over this. We'll be using your credit card. Just come on tomorrow. I will need to warn you that since everything will be removed, you will be having problems with sexual things. I think. Oh wait, I didn't say that his prostate was getting removed. That's it. Yeah. So your prostate will still be around, so you'll still be able to have sex through the back door. I know you like it. I know you mentioned that you liked it really rough with your partner. So you'll still be able to have sex that way. So everything will be fine, Paul. Just come in for the procedure tomorrow, and everything will be ready. Bye. And then I hung up.
Somebody asked why you don't record and upload these phone calls. I agree.
I can't. My phone is so old. It's not able to do those kinds of things, and also
you should
it's
start
only
a Kickstarter for getting yourself a phone. Help Bob connect with Paul.
Yeah.
How do you draw while streaming or recording without making your drawings look stiff or awkward?
By not talking very often and just focusing on the drawing or painting.
I suppose.
You suppose.
What about you, Sycra? How are you handling all this?
I'm not.
He's not.
It's shitty.
Oh, I like it. I think it's funny.
Yeah. How important is a good workspace for a beginner?
It's a good workspace for a beginner. I have no idea because my workspace is pretty messy. But I guess if they mean like just a place where they like not necessarily just a desk, but just a place where they work, then I guess it could be good. It's like you just have some place where you focus on work. But I don't know. It depends.
I think it's good to have. I think it's good to have a workspace like you have, even if it's in bed or whatever. But if you're a beginner, it's probably a good idea to not get hung up on. Oh, I'm gonna start once I get this desk and once I get this chair and I need this other comfortable thing and this exact mouse pad, and because then you're just making up excuses. Like try to think what you're really asking. Like how important is a workspace for a beginner? It's like, do you want to work? Do you really want to work? Then you will make a space your workspace.
Yeah, that's a good point. Just making use of what you have at times is probably also good as well.
Yeah, there's something to be said about constricting yourself until you can actually stand on your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
I want to draw things I think about, but when I start to draw, I end up drawing from habit. How do you fix this?
Huh? You want to draw things you think about? What does that mean?
Okay, so they want to draw things that they think about, but probably when they sit down and draw, they just draw like a face or whatever is their go-to thing instead of their actual idea.
I think it's good to start that way.
Huh?
Like, I think it's not bad to start with start with what you're comfortable with, and then do something that you're uncomfortable with.
Yeah. It could just be that.
Bob.
Oh, it's my turn?
Yeah, it's your turn. It was your turn anyway.
Okay, that's fine. If they're having difficulty drawing what they're seeing, it's very much like what Sycra said. It could just be that they're not used to it, so they're limited by their technique. In which case, they need to acquire more technique, and the way to do that is to study things and draw things that you're not used to. Try to internalize the details and the visuals of it, that kind of stuff. And that's how you sort of expand your visual library. You visualize things, you practice drawing them, you get your muscle memory familiar with them. You make sure that you can draw them without maybe even looking at things, and then once when you've memorized it, then you start being able to expand what you can draw, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like because there's another question. How do I stop drawing the same pose over and over and over? Like there's this type of questions that I've been seeing, and then I kind of detect this pattern of how do I, like you're drawing the same pose over and over. How do you stop? You just draw a different pose. Like if you have the consciousness.
Oh, you can't say that. Calling police right now. You can't tell them that.
Can't tell them that. No. It's like if you're conscious of it enough to type it out on a stream and ask for advice, you can write it on your, I don't know, maybe your sketchbook page. Don't draw this pose again, or fine, if you can't help yourself, if you if you really are compulsive about it and stuff, like fine, draw it out and then do another one, do a different one.
Police is
Spell it
already
out.
on its way.
Yeah, spell it out for yourself.
Yeah. I was just looking at your section.
Yeah. Some artists draw to express themselves, but if you're trying to make money, it needs to have value to someone else who might pay. How do you create that value?
I don't know how to answer that because I've always drawn things that only I'm interested in. I mean, there was a period of time when Sycra and I were doing stuff for Dream Reactor, like the card company, and if that's the case, I don't know. I guess that then it just depends on research. Let's say you're trying to get into a specific company, like a card game or something. You search up what card games involve. Is it fantasy? Is it sci-fi? And then you just look up the trend, see what other artists are doing, and then I don't know, just what the requirements for the job is, I suppose. Because like when we went to this convention, what was it? Anomaly? We talked to like this person who worked for Wizard of the Coast, and I don't remember his name. John Schmidt or something?
John Schindett.
John Schindett. Oh God, terrible name. But anyways, he was just like saying, oh, if you want to like get a job or something, you got to create a portfolio that's tailored to the job requirements. So we did stuff in terms of fantasy, like witches, ogres, orcs, or some stuff like that, because it was a fantasy card game. So if you're looking for like jobs and stuff like that, then you just look for what's required for the job and then do those kinds of work. Get practice with that.
Yeah. Is it good to draw bones frequently as a beginner over what you've drawn already, even if it's ruining what you did?
What does it mean, draw bone?
Like draw the skeleton after you've done a sketch, put in the skeleton.
Skeleton first.
Nice. I don't know.
Sorry, shut down.
Shut down. It's like, oh yeah, it's ruining what you did as a beginner. But as a beginner, everything you do is practice. So think about it this way: it's helping you get better. So it's you're not ruining what you did, because what you did is just a sketch. It's not
That's
not.
a good point.
You're not
I think
gonna
too
go
many
to
people worry about production instead of practice. Like, there's a time and a place for everything. You don't always have to create stuff to show everybody, post on Facebook, and impress everybody.
Yeah. I feel like people get very, very, sometimes I do this myself, I get very precious about things that are supposed to be learning instead of just, yeah, you're going to do a better one next time. Don't worry about ruining it, because whatever you do, it's going to help you later on. Don't think about, let me make things easy for the person I am now. Think about making things easier for the person you're going to be in 5 years.
And they said they were a beginner, right?
Yeah.
So it's sort of like, you're not exactly going to be precious with your own work, because, like, if you're a beginner, then as soon as you start improving, which will be quickly if you do things right, your eye will level up as well, and you will look back at your own work and go, what the hell is this? So, that's going to be coming, so you don't need to get precious with your work right now.
Yeah, but the thing is, Rob, you realize you're coming at this from basically a professional standpoint, so you're sort of way past that beginner stage, and I feel like what they're really saying is, okay, you're a beginner, and you finally did one sketch that you think is cool, and then it's like, oh, this is my one sketch, oh, should I put the skeleton on it, oh, should I do this, like, you're getting because it means so much.
Yeah, but if that's the sort of the mentality you already have, then that's not the mentality you should be having.
Yeah, exactly. I think
you had with that in the first place.
Yeah, you sort of need to think about, keep your eye on the goal, and the goal is to get better. The goal is not that one sketch you did that you can show people, and it's like, you're not gonna care. You're not gonna care about this 2 months from now. Not even 5 years from now. You're not going to do it. You're going to make better sketches. What do you do when you can't think of anything to draw, or are feeling uninspired but you want to draw?
For me, I draw anyways. And sometimes even when I try to find new things to draw and I don't find it inspiring, and that's discouraging, but I still draw anyways. Just like it's like, oh, today's just gonna be a bad day, but I gotta draw anyways.
Yeah. Do you have anything that you go to when you like a reference, or I don't know?
I usually start looking at I start trying to look for things that I'm interested in, but there are times, like, let's say stuff like 1950s stuff or clowns, or just stuff that I'm usually interested in, and sometimes even that might not be enough. I mean, by doing that, you're trying to retrace where you got your inspiration from, but the thing for me is that I can get bored with something very easily, and at the end of the day, I just have to tough it out. But for somebody else, then maybe they just need to, I don't know, just look for things that they could be inspired by. But it could be very easy. It's very easy sometimes to just go like, oh, I'm just going to look for things I'm inspired by, and then I'll draw. That's a precarious thing. It could be a trap, because you might just end up looking for things and not doing anything by the end of the day.
Yeah. Rob, where did your creepy style originate?
Creepy style?
It's your fan. Your shitposter fan.
Oh, shitposter fan. I don't know. I've gone through a few styles. I mean, I've gone through a really cartoony style. I've gone through a style that's more anime, like Kill la Kill. My current stuff is more realistic, so I'm not exactly sure which style they're talking about. But if they're talking about like the things that I draw, the weird creatures, then I don't know. It's kind of fun to draw those kinds of things. As for the screaming faces, I've always drawn them. So, no matter which version of my style I've had, I've always drawn screaming faces. So for me, it's just natural.
Is it better to construct figures out of geometric shapes or more blobby organic shapes?
Depends. Like if you're using more geometric stuff, you're trying to go for something that's 3D. So, if you make something that's 3D, it's like that's what you'll get. It's like you'll get a figure that feels more real, but it might end up more stiff. Using organic shapes could create a better character and more energy. So, they both, I don't know, they're both good. It just depends on what you're going for. And, who's to say that you can't merge those two?
Yeah. Do you feel that stabilizers are a crutch or not?
Stabilize? Oh, you mean for like cleaning things up or something like
Yeah,
that?
like in Clip Studio when they have the.
I mean, I guess they can be, but it's like I don't use them enough to be able to have them as a crutch.
I feel
So
like this is a funny question just because of the wording. It's like, yeah, crutches are there to stabilize you. Yeah.
that is kind of funny. I mean, I don't know. It's like I guess if you're just doing it for a one-off work thing, then it's fine. But if you want to improve, I suppose it would be a good idea to sort of get used to being able to clean things up without using stabilizers. But I don't know. I haven't used those things enough to be able to give a really good opinion on those.
What do you think, Sycra?
Stabilizers?
Yeah.
I know a lot of people who use them. Seems fine. Like if that's your thing. I think something I'm realizing recently is that there's kind of an artist I want to be in terms of myself. Like I want to be able to just draw and not rely on the tool and be able to pick up pretty much any tool and make something kind of cool. So for me, the idea of stabilizers is getting in my way because it's not just important for me to be able to create nice smooth lines, but rather to have very good draftsmanship, I suppose. So for me, it's like, oh, I don't want to use stabilizers because it goes against what I'm going for. But if you want to just create smooth, clean stuff and maybe like sell stuff sooner, it depends what your goal is. I guess really think about what type of artist you want to be.
Yeah, what's your goal?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so many of these questions just boil down to what's your goal, and try to self-reflect before you ask anyone else. Sit yourself down, and try to answer these questions. Like, what am I going for? And usually you have the answers already. Usually you know what you want, you know what you need, you know where you suck, and you know what you need to improve. So it's like,
I suppose it's sort of a responsibility sort of thing. Just by asking somebody, it's like, oh, what do I do? How should I draw things? Oh, what workspace do I need? How many hours do I need to practice? And sort of passing the responsibility off to somebody else, because then
yeah,
it's
it's a
just like,
lot of this delayed childhood thing where it's like, okay, prolong your student years, prolong your, I don't know, childlike position. Like, oh, I'm here, and tell me, what do I need to do? Notice me, senpai, and all this stuff. It's like a lot of this is regression, and it's not really gonna set you up for a path to success later on. You have to grow out of it sooner or later. It's not nice. It's not comfortable. It's not cool, and you get the puberty thing going on, and you get your ugly duckling stage, and you fail a lot, and you suck a lot, and you fail some more, and then you make it.
I suppose a good thing for people, a lot of the people asking a lot of the similar questions in the chat could do is and instead of thinking it's just like you can come to us to ask questions, imagine you have nobody to turn to. It's just you. You can't ask anybody, you can't go to anybody, it's just you. Force yourself into that position, and then you will come up with solutions. You'd be surprised.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of you guys are just, you know it, you have it, you have the answer. You don't need to ask, you don't need to be insecure, you don't need to be, you have the power, so to speak. You're not incapable, you're not incompetent. It's like, do it. Just do it, and then once you fail, and once you failed 1,000 times, then if you still haven't gotten it, which you probably will get it, then ask. Then just make sure your attempts are your own, and you start off an actual base. You don't just send in, this is my first drawing, what do you think? It's your first drawing. Your arm's not moving properly. You can't hold a pencil. What else would I think? Or what else would anyone think?
Yeah.
You drew a horse, or you tried to draw a horse. It doesn't look like a horse. Whatever. How do you guys remedy pain that results from sitting and drawing for long periods of time? Wrists.
Use a Powerball.
Yeah, Powerball.
I do stretches.
And stretches, yeah.
Stretches, Powerballs, and breaks, and anti-inflammatory cream if it gets super bad. Like, just make sure you take care of yourself in time so you don't have to.
Or in my case, go see a physiotherapist.
In Bob's case, try the controller instead of the keyboard for a while.
Try the tablet.
Try the
voice controller.
and then when it gets so bad, go see a physiotherapist.
Yeah. Alyssa asks if I have any psychology books that are good to help dissect human characters. I think what you're looking for is like anatomy books, or maybe if you're looking for dissecting. But I would really recommend maybe reading like literature, not in the sense of Lord of the Rings or anything of the sort, but actual novels. Like maybe read Kafka or and try to look at these people, because they these authors like Kafka and Hermann Hesse, they tend to describe human character in a way that is more complete. Where like you don't really need a handbook, you don't really need a psychology handbook, because if there's anything that I learned through psychology university and all my reading and stuff, is that school teaches you shit. Like almost literally, school teaches you shit, and it's really on you to learn. It's really on you to like fine. Even if you have, because I've had good teachers and I've had good mentors, but you're the one who has to go to them and ask and get the information out of them and ask your own questions and do your own homework and do your own research. So it's more learn to look at people. Like, for example, I really like people watching, and I've had days where I would just go out and sit myself in a more or less crowded place, and I was just looking at people and how they're walking, their micro expressions, their body language, the way they were walking in a crowd. It's like, what are they doing? And once you sort of learn to look at things that way, you will have, like, that's your fundamentals. That's your perspective. That's your drawing. You have your drawing done. So any psychology books that you read afterwards, you will have first-hand experience. Because I've had colleagues in my school who come to because it's very easy to get into university compared to what it used to be. They come to learn psychology with the idea that teachers will teach you everything about the world. And I see this with art as well. It's like, how do I do this? How do I learn values? It's like, try first. Look at the thing. Like, make attempts and make 20 attempts or make 50 attempts or make 100 attempts, and you will figure it out. You will figure out the building blocks of this, because if you can't, you don't really stand a chance. You will be using borrowed knowledge. It's sort of like tracing. If you're learning about people from a psychology book, you will never know anything about people. You will know about that book.
Generalizations.
Too many
generalizations.
Too general.
Yep.
Fine, I'll stop ranting.
Was
When
a good
presenting...
It was a good rant.
It's a good rant, but take it with a grain of salt, as I've been told. When presenting a portfolio, is it better to build up through more sketches and practices than finished drawings, or the other way around. So you're asking if you need to have practice and sketches in a portfolio rather than just pieces.
From what I've seen so far, people don't really. I don't know. I guess unless the job requires that you do sketches, then no. For the most part, I've seen most portfolios are finished works. Like they're done. Like they're
You
presentable.
had that Disney portfolio thing, right?
Yeah, I had that Disney portfolio. There's a PDF. If you look up, I think, Disney admission portfolio sample, there is this PDF that comes up with just sketches and practice and sort of.
No, it has some finished works too.
There's still drawings though.
That's because it's so old. That's what they had. It's like super old.
That's for
for illustration, they don't really want to see your sketches and stuff.
Yeah, concept art and illustration, they probably don't want to see sketches, but for animation, it's because I remember now in VFS there were like there's this really good one that had a lot of gorillas in it, and it was just sketches, and it was really good. Yeah.
Concept art, they want to see process. So they want to see like how you came up with an idea, and one of the things with sketches is that they kind of want to see that it's your idea, not you haven't just ripped off someone else, because some people do that. But that's also what tests are for. You're usually tested, given a prompt, and you get to see like, well, can you really do this? It's not like you could have a nice portfolio and that's the end of it. That's more like that's the beginning. And you still have to go through an interview.
From what I know, there are certain types of art schools who ask for a lot of process and sketches.
Art schools do. But
yeah, only for schools.
No,
or just
not only for schools, but it depends what job. Like if you're an animator, they want to see figure drawing and gesture drawing and stuff to see can you get life. But if you're an illustrator, it's all about the final image. So maybe they want to see a process of how you got there, but from what I know, they don't really need the sketches too much. And often, well, how it was for me anyway, is that people just see your work online anyway and then contact you.
Yeah, I think things have changed since there's such a boom in internet. There's been a shift. How long did it take you guys to get paid for what you do since you started taking art seriously?
Still not paid for it.
But you do different kinds of art, like roto art.
It's not art. It's not art at all.
No. But you get paid.
Technical stuff. Yeah, but I do get paid. It's a different job, not art. Art I do for fun. Still.
That's good though. Still a good trade-off, I would say. For myself, I dread the thought of not having fun drawing anymore. Just takes the soul out of something that is so close to me. A very bad thought. What is it?
Nothing, just a bad pun.
Oh, a bad pun. Is it good to draw when you're sick?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, what that would be a big deal. Like, why does that need to be a question?
I think if you're sick in terms of your arms are gone, maybe it's not good to draw.
I guess I don't know if you're ill and you're vomiting or something. Maybe you should just focus on recovering, or I don't know. I mean, it'd be a bad idea to stain your drawing, right?
One thing at a time.
No, it's mixed media. They call it mixed media. It's abstract. I don't know. I think it's good if you're in bed with the flu and stuff. I think it's very therapeutic to draw.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
if you're
Like that's what I'd imagine. Like if you're just like if you have the flu or some common sickness and you're just in bed and you're bored, it's like just draw.
if you have really really bad diarrhea and you're just stuck on the toilet, just take a
Yeah,
sketch.
yeah.
I think this very much depends on the person.
Why? You think you get like spasms and you just
No, I know some people who they get sick and then they can still read and do stuff.
I can read it.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I've heard it's mostly women who can do this. As guys, they just get knocked out. Nothing. And when I have diarrhea, I've got to focus on my diarrhea. I don't have energy for drawing.
But that is art.
Diarrhea?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's
better
Jackson-
than a lot of the stuff I've
Yeah,
seen in
it's Jackson
galleries.
Pollock.
Depends what you've eaten, but yeah, it can be.
How long are the weekly streams going to be? We're gonna go for an hour and a half, so
It's the same.
yeah, it's the
as
same.
month.
Just
I'm not
more.
ripping you off. You see?
Although there were other voices who
Bob
suggested
had his way.
if Bob had his way,
Oh.
what would you do, Bob?
Well, if I had my way, you guys would be getting crumbs, and that would count as cake.
Oh.
Yeah, Bob had this suggestion of us doing a 30-minute stream every week, and that's it.
Oh, good for you guys that I was outnumbered, huh?
See, so they're getting the picture. Somebody says use the vomit as ink. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you have chunks in it, you're gonna ruin your pen, though.
I'm just thinking. Just think of the textures that will be created.
Amira's just you have me and you have Bob, and then Amira's like, you're in the minority.
Of course, I'm a minority. Have you not seen the stream?
Is there a high demand for more traditional fine art done on canvases? And how would you get into that industry? Industry?
It's not an industry.
Yeah, industry. I think this is a bit. Yeah, there's a. I would say because I work in a fine art, contemporary art gallery. There is a high demand, but it's within certain circles. It's kind of like commercial art is more distributed. Like you have like with Patreon and Kickstarter, and even with I don't know prints at conventions. Like the costs are very low compared to fine art, but the buyers are many because it's easier to like access. It's more accessible to the general audience. However, with the fine art thing, it's like you will conceivably get good and like not excellent, not a great painter, and you will sell a canvas for 2,000 euro or something like that. But you need to consider like, oh sure, this sounds like a huge amount, but you have to consider materials, and most of all, you have to consider you're splitting all the pay with your gallery, unless you want to just haul your canvases, in which case you have to pay for the insurance, you have to pay for the shipping, which adds up. So you don't really, you're not really finding a gold mine there. So to call it an industry, it's like, it's more just a different type of market, and you need to know your bullshit, or you need to find a curator or a gallery to work with that really knows how to bullshit people, because a lot of it is talk. Generalization. You can just chime in with that.
No, there's so many possibilities for everything. No. Just think there's so many possibilities to do traditional art with Patreon, to do it with whatever. Like these formulaic answers, they don't really exist. I mean, look at my channel, for instance. When I started, no one was doing art tutorials. It was in 2006. No, was it? Yeah. Anyway, it was 2006, and no one was doing art tutorials. So if someone said, "Oh, do you think YouTube is something you can do to get work in art or something?" People would say no, because it's not. But it can be. It's up to you. I think if you really believe in stuff, you can do quite a lot of things. That's my dumb opinion.
One of my art instructors told me it's good to take breaks during art, like any sport or form of education. Do you agree it's helpful to take a break sometimes? Yes.
No, we already said that.
Yeah, yes. How do you improve your imagination? That's a weird question.
Mm-hmm.
How do you improve your imagination?
I think by drawing. That's the way I found.
Drawing is a pretty good way of letting you know how much you can visualize what you really see in your mind. Because it's what you see in your mind, like you might think it's a full image, but in reality it's not. It's actually like if I were to actually describe images in my mind, they probably wouldn't be like a photo. It's probably something a lot more blurry or something like that. The human brain. There are very few people who can really visualize completely and utterly. Like Kim Jong-il would probably be one of those examples. But for most people, it's like, no, what you see in your mind isn't actually the full thing. When you draw it out, you find out very quickly what you can do, what you actually see in your mind, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. How do you come up with good shape language?
How do you come up with good shape language? I don't know, just practice shapes, I guess. Like just try drawing things out with shapes, combining shapes, that kind of stuff. Just practice, I guess.
Yeah. I think by making it important and really observing the shapes and caring about them, it helps.
Would it be a good idea to try and draw something as realistically as I can, and then draw it in a style that works better for me?
Sure, why not? Like, just try it out. It's sort of like you don't really lose anything by trying it, so just experiment.
Yeah, I feel like it's actually helpful to do it realistically at first, sort of, okay, try to stay true to the reference, and then try to refer to your own first drawing instead of the original reference, and then compare, because you will have things to compare. Instead of if you just did it stylized from the get-go.
Yeah. It does force you to learn more about visual information as well. How much do you retain when you stylize? How much do you lose? That kind of stuff.
I feel like I'm borrowing too much from existing work. People have told me I exaggerate and it's more like reference.
More like reference. So their problem is that they have difficulty making their work look like their own.
I suppose so. I guess they're referring to, like, they're referencing other art instead of, I don't know, just poses or something.
Oh, I don't know. Like it depends. Like if you are looking at other artists too much, maybe it's time to sort of just like leave that alone and just let your work develop on its own. Because then it's sort of like because for me, if I don't look at other artists very often, and then by doing that, my work sort of becomes very insular, and then it sort of just becomes its own thing, because you're sort of left with nothing but your own preferences. So that's one suggestion. Another way you could do it is maybe like if you are looking at other artists too much, once again, you can try to look for patterns on what they're doing, and then try to do something else that's different from what they're doing. That kind of stuff.
How can I maintain drawing stamina if I get discouraged easily as a beginner?
Just keep going. That's sort of like how you like create stamina, I suppose. Like if you're just beginning, you're not ever gonna have a time when you're not discouraged, because you know, at that time you're very unskilled. You're probably not being able to achieve the things that you see in your mind. So it's going to be discouraging. And I feel as though that's sort of like something you can't really get over unless you're the type of person who just sort of likes their own work no matter what, which can be an advantage as well as some disadvantages. But it's sort of like you just have to work through it, or at least find ways to make it more enjoyable, or some such.
What do you think, Sycra?
What was the question?
How do you get more stamina if you get like easily burnt out as a beginner?
And for me, I kept getting this recently, and my fix was to do things that were easy for me or natural. But the problem with that, like I maybe would have made a video on it, but the problem is I think you need a lot of experience first before you can know what is really easy and what's just you staying inside your comfort zone, because it's kind of comfort zone-y, but it's kind of not. You've still got to push yourself. I don't know, it's something I'm mulling over in my head, so I don't feel like I have a good answer right now.
Well, there you go. Stay tuned to Sycra videos so you can get one in the future.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What do you think, Amira? How do you get stamina?
As a beginner?
Yeah.
I mean, like, this question is very subjective because there are reasons why a lot of people can't play the guitar or piano because they don't put the practice in it. So art is the same way. Like, you need to have the motivation to do it and enjoy it at the same time to get through the beginner stage. And I'm still at the beginner stage, but it's like I enjoy doing it, so it's not really like torture. But if you don't enjoy it, then and you're suffering or you get demotivated, then maybe I don't know.
Maybe
Try something else.
I was just thinking like and this depends entirely on the person asking the question. But let's say they're drawing things in their mind and they want to achieve something, and then because of that, it's so personal to them when they're trying to draw the image that's just like when they fail, it's very harsh. But maybe if they just instead of like trying to draw their own personal thing, they go like, no, I'm just going to do studies, and the studies they can be discouraging at times, but because it's so technical, it's impersonal. So then when you do it, it's sort of like, well, this doesn't really harm me that much. It's just kind of tedious or something. So therefore, I can do more of it. And then, I don't know, just by doing that, they can get better. And then studies are supposed to sort of help you get better anyways. So maybe that's something they could do. Just try to do something that's not as personal when it comes to creating their art.
I don't know. I mean, think of it this way. If, let's say, you wake up the next day and you have all the knowledge and the skill to do art and do every single picture perfect, yeah, it's going to be fun for maybe a year or something, and then after that you get bored of it. The reason why art is fun is because you're always chasing after something, and you can always get better at it. I don't know. That's how I think.
I think it's slightly different for the beginner, especially for somebody who feels as though they can't achieve what they want, and if they feel frustrated from it, then it's sort of like it's kind of different. But I see what you mean.
I am frustrated as well because there are many things in my head that I can't draw because my eyes have developed way faster than my skills. But it's still something I do every day because I kind of enjoy it.
Well, that's a good advantage of enjoying things.
Yeah. I personally think that it's really good to give yourself art treats in a way, like make art the reward. So then you'll keep chasing it. You'll keep chasing it because you want to get rewarded. You want to get like, okay, fine, you have to put in work, and that's going to be a bit dry and whatever, but draw something for yourself that really pleases you. Like, for me, I really like seeing certain colors and I don't know, combinations of strokes and textures and shiny things. So I was like, every time I do that for myself, even if really most of the time I'm, I don't know, studying teeth or whatever, something pretty boring in and of itself, it's a boost. So whenever I get the urge, like, oh, I'm kind of bored and whatever, I'll just do something for myself. I'll draw one of my cauliflowers, and that'll be it.
I suppose maybe that's a good way of going about it. Might go back to this goes back a little bit to what Sycra said about just doing something that you're familiar with. It might be a good idea to sort of separate, how you go about doing art. So let's say, if you want to relax and just sort of reestablish that you enjoy doing art, maybe just draw something that you're comfortable with, something that you're confident about, and then when you're trying to improve and be a bit more technical. That's when you start doing the things that are a bit more difficult, like let's say, I don't know, just studies or something like that. Like that's when you start trying to improve. Maybe that way, when you fail, it's not as harsh.
Yeah, I think it's probably good to think about it in terms of what states are you getting, what emotional feedback are you getting from it, what moods are you in when you're doing art, and sort of encourage as much as you need in terms of fuel, because this is going to be your fuel, your emotions and your state of mind and whatever. It's like, don't make it so that you don't have to fight against yourself, or if you have to fight against yourself, if you're lazy and you know yourself to procrastinate, but you really, really want to do art, find enough that will keep you going, that will, I don't know, replenish your energy. Let's see. How do you train your brain to think of shapes instead of lines?
I'm pretty sure I answered this kind of stuff before, but they said, like, how do they train shapes, their mind into seeing shapes instead of lines, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's pretty easy. Just use lines to draw shapes, and then if just practice, I suppose. But I don't know. Maybe that's too vague of an answer. What do you guys think?
Especially when I was painting, it kind of just happened naturally. Like, you can draw a shape, but then you get to a point, you can like outline a shape, but then something in your brain is like, I can skip this step. It's kind of like guidelines. You don't really need them all the time. At some point, your brain just sees it. I don't know. That's how it was for me anyway. It just sort of happened naturally.
You raise a good point, because working with line, I remember when I was doing a very bad job at painting. It's sort of like because I was trying to paint with lines and that wasn't working. And then you told me, it's like, no, colors, they aren't lines, they're just shapes. That's sort of that happened a lot when I was sort of transferring from line art into coloring it. When I colored something, the line art sort of becomes almost irrelevant. It's still relevant, but it's just somewhat it's less important when the color's there, because that's how the human eye sees reality, right? It's like we see in shapes of colors instead of just lines, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I suppose doing more painting work would just sort of naturally force you into that different state of mind, I suppose.
Yeah, and also using the side of the brush, maybe, or I mean your pencil. Just training yourself in a more shapy way of drawing.
Yeah. Because then you're sort of working with blocks instead of just a line.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry if I'm not talking well.
No. You're
it's
doing.
Really hard to draw and talk.
No. You are doing a fine job, sir.
Thanks.
Your art looks very good.
Question: what are bad habits? Not sure if I have them or not. I can't really get away from procrastinating as I have a lot of time per day. How to be efficient?
Bad habits. Guess what? You got them.
You got them.
And you just named it. It's called procrastination.
I get tired fast from iterative drawing.
Yeah.
I think you're supposed to get tired, right?
Yeah, it's pretty tiring. The whole point is that you improve really quick compared to when you don't. I think the thing is, when I talk about iterative drawing and it's the fastest we can improve, this comes from a lot of experience in terms of drawing. So I can imagine how someone starting out may be doing iterative drawing and then thinking like, this isn't that fast. This kind of sucks and it's very slow. But for me, it's like, well, the alternative is worse.
I
But you
suppose
already
stuff
have
like
a
that.
ton of mileage.
Yeah, that's something again that
You keep forgetting that.
like I didn't realize this until Flavia came over to Vancouver in May, and then like this year's May, and then she was looking at my sketchbooks, and I had like a huge pile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't do much work. I'm lazy. Yeah, I don't. It's like, what is this then? What is this big stack that I'm having trouble lifting?
Yeah, I kind of forgot how many drawings I have. Like, I guess there's many thousands.
It's probably heavier than me.
Wow.
It's probably heavier than me.
A
Oh,
lot of work.
that's
Yeah.
that's a
It's
side.
a lot of work, but I still suck.
You
Oh,
don't
well.
suck.
You don't suck.
Good work.
Well, I suck less after the iterative drawing thing.
Well, there you
There's
go.
that.
That's improvement. That's improvement.
Yeah.
It's just like an
I believe
intense
in-
workout, right?
It's like an Indian's workout? What?
No,
Intense.
Indians workout.
Oh, it's intense.
You were thinking of Indians' workout in terms of like, oh, they're lazy and what or what?
Or
No,
they
I
just
was thinking about Native Americans, also called Indians, because they live in tents.
Ah!
Oh, snap.
Oh boy.
But no, I said it's like an intense workout. You get
Sorry, yeah.
tired very quickly.
Yeah, and like an intense workout, you build your muscles really fast
Mm-hmm.
compared to like not intense.
Huh. I love so many different subjects and styles. How should I whittle it down in terms of developing my own style in the end?
Say that question again.
Like this person likes a bunch of styles and subjects, and
Okay.
how should they develop their own style? Like narrow it down to developing their own style.
Is this that thing about admiration versus liking?
Yeah, I figured you
It's
might have
probably,
some.
yeah.
I mean, you know my,
I know you, but you say it better.
but I can't think right now.
All right. I'll try and do it. So, you should try to look at all the things you like, all the styles and subjects that you like, and for each of them, ask yourself, what is it about this? Is it really something that I like? Is it something I would do myself, or is this something that I admire? And if I had this person's skill, what would I draw with it? What would I paint with it? Would I be painting what they're painting? Would I be painting how they're painting it? Or am I just admiring them because they can pull off a value shift or because they can pull off this dynamic pose? But would I really draw the same dynamic pose that they're drawing? And that should help you narrow it down.
Mm. I think if
I
you
need to show up.
You won't even need to show up. Oh no.
Wait, what?
I can't do this without you.
You can, you got it.
I can't.
I was just gonna say that if you keep sticking with drawing, you'll eventually find out. Keep what Flavia said in mind, but also just like if you keep with drawing and you just do things, you'll eventually find out sort of like what's really for you, especially if you're looking for your own style. Because like if you try to do somebody else's stuff, it not only will it be more difficult, but your work also suffers. And then once when you figure out, it's like, okay, what is my style? What do I really want? It'll get easier, and then in many ways you'll start feeling more free because you're not restricted by what you think your stuff should be. Yeah.
There's another question. Does a style have to be the way you draw shapes and human features? Oh, they just deleted their comment mid-comment. I was just reading it. But the gist of it was, does it have to be the way they're drawing human features, or could it be just the way they're holding their pencil or the materials they're using?
I think it's both. I think I mentioned this in a video, manufactured versus inherent style.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might want to check that out. Yeah, here is the question again, but we've already answered it. I work full-time in a non-art job. Do you have tips for me so I can progress and get good?
I don't know. I guess just try to look for times in the day where you just, like, any free time you have, just do a little bit of drawing. That could be something. Because it's sort of like, if you're in a full-time job, then your energy is probably going to be a huge factor. Because it's sort of like, okay, at the end of the day, you come home, you're tired from work or something like that.
Yep.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, Mira, you probably have something.
Yeah,
right
you probably know more about this.
I feel that all the time. Like, I don't have the energy to draw, but this is what I do. I want to play games, so before I can play games, I have to force myself to draw. So it has become a thing. Before I Overwatch, I have to draw one thing.
I remember there's this video. I forgot the artist's name, but Sycra recommended it to me in terms of something to watch. But there's this artist. He had a full-time job, and then he basically said what he did was just like, at the very minimum, if he comes back home, he has to do like 15 or 30 minutes of drawing, and then it's just like, and then it's not that bad if it's just that, if that's the bare minimum. And then after a while, you get used to it, and it's just like, oh, it's not so bad. 30 minutes isn't so bad. You raise it to like, I don't know, 40 minutes, and then it turns into an hour or something like that. So yeah, that could be something.
This is actually advised by Sycra, because he told me to draw at least one thing a day. So
yeah, Sycra's advice coming through.
Yeah. Ricardo's in the chat.
Oh,
He says, "Hey, Ricardo." He says,
Ricardo.
every question could be answered with practice, and he is right.
Yeah.
He's pretty
Ricardo's
much right.
doing some great stuff recently.
Yeah. Ricardo knows what's up.
If I'm already trying sketching as a beginner, is it okay to juggle sketching on paper and tablet? Basically drawing on both paper and digital, on and off.
I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sort of like, they're both drawing. I mean, drawing with a sketchbook has a different feel to it, and you know, using traditional always does feel more personal, just because it's like it's right there, and you're using a 3D object instead of seeing something that's 2D on a screen. But it's like, they're both fine. They both have their advantages.
Yeah. I agree. And I think with when I draw in my sketchbook, it's more fluid. It's more just because it's more comfortable to move my arm around and make the lines and stuff. But with digital, I can just clean it up. So that's a good thing in terms of fuel to get for my next drawing. It's a boost. Like, oh yeah, I can actually make it look presentable. And I know that's a cheat in a way, but I feel like I can allow myself it.
Yeah, it's like whatever makes you enjoy art more is good, right?
Yeah. It's sort of like if you're dieting and you put in the cheat day, it's because there's a reason for it. It's like your body needs to not get used to the diet, so you're hitting two birds with one stone. Not that you should hit birds with stones, but still.
Oh, I see a bird. Oh, they're aligned perfectly. Quick, give me a rock.
Okay. Here's a question for Sycra. I have trouble drawing people from angles other than from in front. How can I get better at seeing things from different points of view?
This is can be that Ricardo thing again, isn't it? So yeah, you can practice, and that'll do it for you. In terms of what you can practice,
I think you can practice being less loud so that people won't turn towards you every time you come towards them. Like if you sneak up behind somebody and draw them and you're quiet, you can draw them from different angles.
I found like doing this thing where you draw a head and then you separate it into the planes, like that really helped me, because when you draw different things, you kind of look up those planes and then sort of tell you, oh, this needs to be here, this, whatever. I don't know. But I think I made a video on, maybe I haven't. Okay, if I haven't made a planes of the face
You have.
video. Oh, I have.
You have
There you
with
go.
the ellipses.
Yeah, I've done it. I mean, I've done it. I have done that. Yeah, that.
Hello, Canuck says, you have Sycra.
Yay!
They know what's up.
I work a lot in black ink and pencil, but never in color. What's a good medium to learn how to use color? What do you think, Sycra?
Digital is pretty good.
Digital is pretty good.
I like oil, and I think anything. Like one way to get into color is whatever medium you use. Start with monochrome, and then maybe add another color, and then more colors as you go. But like start with a very limited palette, and go from there. I mean, it's one way of doing it. I'm not saying that that's the perfect way. You have to do it that way. But
Yeah.
it works.
If they're already using ink, you can just get colored ink and do that.
Yeah.
Washes or anything. Like if you're already comfortable with the tool, there are ways of making it suit your needs.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we got 7 minutes.
Sycra, how do you make hands? I always get the thumbs on the wrong side.
Huh?
That's the question.
But you have a hand.
Maybe they have the thumbs on the wrong side.
You just like look at your hand and see which side the thumb is, and then draw it, and then draw it many, many times. I suppose it's a valid question.
Because I can't tell left from right either. Like I put the thumbs where they need to be, but if you ask me to tell you which is right and which is
maybe
left.
practice it then. Yeah, maybe it's very hard because you may have to practice this, but you will get it if you keep practicing. You know. You know what though? Okay, so hands are one thing. People draw their hands, whatever. Okay, so this is the hand. You figure out. Okay, you know what's good is to understand the little finger. Yeah, this one. All right. So you got an arm. This will kill time. You've got an elbow, right? See, right here is your elbow. All right, elbow, elbow. There's a bone that goes down here, and it's connecting to the elbow, and it's called the ulna. All right, and then that one is on the side of the pinky, which is this finger. See, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and a thumb. All right. So this elbow is telling you which side the pinky is on. But that's not the problem. The problem is everybody with your freaking backwards feet. Okay, so you've got a foot or whatever. There's a big toe side and a little toe side. And I keep seeing people put the big toe side on the wrong side. The big toe side is on the inside. So here, this guy, right? This is his underwear right here. These are his things. All right. So which side is the big toe side? Is it this side? Or is it this side? Well, which side is inside? This side is inside. So, all right, enough.
I think maybe you could just remember big toes are on the side with the testicles.
But what about women?
Labia.
Yeah, but then you have to put like
Big
like-
labia.
no, you have to put testicles and then asterisks and then labia. And then feminists will get mad because they said, why labia also? No,
Testicles and
testicles also. This is the labia. All right.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure we've gone through all the questions that I could catch.
We did it.
We did it.
Yeah.
Oh snap!
Do you know why my mother doesn't love me?
We're not drunk. Someone's asking, are we all drunk?
No, alcohol is not involved in this madness.
No, I think testicles exist independently of alcohol consumption. I'm pretty sure they're not a myth. They're not a hallucination.
Sycra, do you think you'll be doing more interviews in the future? I don't think so. I don't know. I don't think so. Where are you from? Just interesting. I think I'm not first. Who asking this? What?
They're not the first who's asking this question. They just want to know where you're from.
That's what.
Where we are from, or where the other people in the chat are
I
from?
think everyone. I think
Amira, where are you from?
yeah.
Originally from Singapore, but I'm living in Vancouver now.
Whoa,
Oh.
that's expensive.
Yeah, it is. They're both expensive, to be fair.
All right. How many languages can you guys speak, and what are they? Flavia?
I don't speak any languages.
We have 2 minutes left. Are there more questions?
Is Bob still getting called by Dell Technical Support?
We went over this.
We've been over this.
Yeah.
Tune in for the. Oh, I shouldn't just leave an empty thing. All right, let's draw a quick picture.
Tips for creating expressive expressions when you can't expression yourself.
Look in the mirror. Do expressions.
But what if they can't? Because that's the point.
Yeah, a mirror is right here.
A mirror's right.
Oh,
Again.
I don't know. Force for somebody else to do expressions. Whoa, what is it?
Uh-oh.
I just thought how, like, I've known a mirror for a while. How many mirror
times?
jokes am I
Yeah.
gonna make? And I thought, like, oh, when you're driving, sometimes you have to look in your side view a mirror.
God. It doesn't end.
Oh, let's hope it never does. It's just a mirror everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a mirror on the wall.
Who's the mirrorest of them all?
All right. Okay, it's 11:30. Oh!
Yeah!
Wow!
Shit.
How time flies. Amazing. Amazing. All right. Great going, guys. So there are streams every week on Saturday. On Saturday for us here. I think it should be Saturday for everybody.
Saturday.
For most, maybe not. Maybe not Australians. Australians
We're not
are
training.
aliens. All right. So, thank you to all the patrons who made this weekly thing happen. And also, if the Patreon money goes below $1,000, I don't have to do this every week. So, you know, it's up to you.
Hoi.
And then thanks everybody who tuned in live and left comments.
Questions?
Some good, some not so good. Left them anyway.
Yeah.
Generalizing.
Generalizing. I have done no such thing. I admit to nothing. I confess nothing.
And thanks also to the people who will watch this later recorded. I also apologize. And thanks to my special guests, starting with my wife Flavia.
I admit to nothing.
Amira.
Bye. Thank
Bobby
you.
Beck.
Uh.
And me, your host, Phoenix. Bye.
Bye.